Hey guys, here we are in round 4, I believe. Errol Spence has kind of shown so far that he's, I hate to say one-dimensional, but one-dimensional in his offense. When he's not holding and hitting, it looks like his only way that he sets up offense or sets up punches is to feint the jab and establish lead foot dominance and then throw 2 punches. And hope his opponent retreats to the ring, or to the edge of the ring, to the ropes, and land some punches. Not showing that he has like a very diverse skill set for his offense, which is going to be a problem for him as soon as he faces a fighter who can make an adjustment to what he's doing. Spoiler alert, Chris Algieri kind of does in this round. So we'll be able to get to look at some of the things that Chris Algieri does. But this is not about Chris Algieri, so I'm not breaking this fight down. I'm only trying to break down what's going on with Errol Spence, his flaws and the good things that he does ahead of his Kell Brook fight, and see if we can, figure out some familiarities or some similarities between the way that the two fighters fights, the styles and whatever, and see if we can kind of come up with a game plan for how the fight is gonna wind up playing out. Anyway, let's go ahead and get into it. I think it starts pretty quick. You got a double jab from Algieri, and he throws a left hand. I don't know if it lands, it doesn't matter, but Spence does something really smart. When his opponent establishes lead foot dominance against him, which is something that you're supposed to do when you fight a southpaw, he gets down, he blocks the punch, right? He does allow Chris Algieri to throw it, which is not the greatest, or to even allow him to get lead foot dominance, but after, he does something really great. He turns and he shoots outside, taking that angle away from Algieri without having to take like a lot of punishment. Notice like whenever Spence gets into that position against Algieri, he's able to get off, 2, 3, 4 punches or whatever. And then Chris Algieri actually always goes to the wrong side. Most conventional fighters move to their right? So Chris Algieri always pivots to his right, but notice how Spence goes to his right, which would be Algieri's left, and he moves completely away from both hands, whereas Algieri kind of always does move into Spence's right hook. So that is something that we haven't been able to talk about because he's been the one pressing forward against Algieri so much. But that is good, that it shows that he has at least a good understanding, still hand in hand with what punches are always open for each thing, but he has a good understanding of what's going on with his fighting style versus his opponent's. Here, he winds up being completely open after he throws the jab, and Chris Algieri counters him. Again, pulls down and tries to control his head, and he kind of eats a counter. It's kind of to the back of the head, but that's not, in this case, I don't think that that's actually Algieri's fault, because look at how far back Errol Spence is getting. He's basically behind him now, right? And it's Algieri's job to keep him in front of him, but while he's punching, he kind of gets behind him, and I think that's kind of like a no-fault rabbit punch kind of thing, it's unfortunate, but nobody's doing anything like that on purpose. And then he blocks the shot. I think he blocks it, it doesn't matter. Right here, again, what's coming, and he lands a hook on Errol Spence, and Errol Spence kind of falls off balance. But look at this is really weird. Errol Spence picks his leg up and keeps moving and throws him off balance, right? After him being the reason that they tied up in the first place, no sportsmanship, knocks him off balance with his feet, and then just goes straight into attacking. And what happens when he attacks? Gets countered with the left hook. I'm pretty sure that lands. The quality of this video is really poor, but I'm pretty sure it lands. Kind of stops Errol Spence in his tracks. Errol Spence doing some, I don't know, I guess you can call it good work. I don't think he lands his shot there, and it doesn't matter if he does, but throws the body shot, takes an angle on him, which is really good. I don't know if that counted as a punch from him. He blocks that shot, ducks the left hand. I think he might land that right hook there. I think he's pretty good with that shot, knowing that Algieri's trying to duck the left hand. He's probably pretty used to that. I don't know if he lands that body shot. I'm going to say no. When Algieri goes to punch, well, let's see exactly how his arm got there on his head. I guess maybe he does. He throws that hook, holds his head again. He shouldn't be doing that. But at least it wasn't exactly to set up offense, but then does catch him with a great hook, or a great jab after, which is fine, whatever. Real quick, get back here. Boom. Throws another hook. He's completely open for it. Chris Algieri does touch his shoulder before he touches his chin. And then it looks like he kind of eats that uppercut. And then there you go, more Spence holding his head. You know, he shouldn't be doing that, so he can't move, right? So he can't get away. Throwing a hook, and then maintaining close distance. Now this part is good, right? So as soon as Algieri he knew when Algieri was going to take his step, he took his step too. Look how close he maintains with him. Even though he holds his head right there, he steps with him right there. So now when Algieri does take his step back onto the line that they would be on, Errol Spence is still in lead foot dominance and has perfect foot position and is able to catch him with that straight or that left hook thing, and that's what drops Algieri right there. Let's just go ahead and take a look back at like kind of all of that. You know, knocks him off balance, maybe lands that first left hand, no real punches there, left hand there, catch him with the jab. You know, open for a counter, catches him with them, holding, hitting, and then catches the knockdown. And I want to point out also that the clock hasn't been running for about 30 seconds. Yeah, so it's at 2:57 right now, right? So it's going to show up here, but it's, you know, it's been 10 seconds into the fight already. And if I press my button twice, 20 seconds in, the clock is still the same. The whole 10 count, this clock is the same. This winds up being a really long round for Chris Algieri. And I don't know what happened there, but boom, what is this? As soon as he just got knocked down, right? That was a legit punch. You know, he caught him changing angles, moving off the line, like great awareness for Errol Spence. And what does he do? Commits to the punch, pulls his head down, misses the hand, the left hand, and Chris Algieri changes head slots and cracks him with the counter, right? Really good stuff from Algieri, making an adjustment to the left hand. But again, Errol Spence completely wide open for counters. Again, Errol Spence throws the jab, misses, pulls his head down, goes to get a better angle so he can land a better shot, you know, getting lead foot dominance, and kind of takes a counter shot. You know, it is to the back of the head, but remember, he's holding his head down. He shouldn't be doing that. And he's getting basically behind Algieri. And you'll see that where it becomes a foul later on in the round. But lands a decent body shot. And then what does he do? After the body shot, bodies up with him, which is smart. It stops your opponent from landing offense. And then you're supposed to push off to land your own offense, right? And then he eats a counter shot and misses his other punch. And then these punches right here, those jabs, supposed to be controlling him. I kind of think he lands this left hand, but it's not. As you can see, it's not like a super hard punch. And Algieri gets off the ropes. It looks like Algieri's landed 2 really solid punches after just being knocked down, only because Errol Spence is so wide open when he punches. He has no defense. And this is a hurt Algieri, and he's able to do this. Again, changes head slots to avoid the jab, and then changes head slots to avoid the right hand. But the counters, they freeze Errol Spence because Errol Spence is not ready to counterpunch with him. He doesn't know how to counterpunch, and he commits to his punches, right? That's another factor in Errol Spence and his fighting technique, is how much he commits to him. The only time he doesn't commit to his punches is when he's establishing lead foot dominance, and it's a huge tell. Maybe Kell Brook will be able to pick up on that. And this is interesting. Look at him change head slot, move his hand a little bit, and back Errol Spence up because Errol Spence doesn't know what he's doing. You know, he's not figuring him out. Again, throws a punch, tries to get a hold of his head, but Chris Algieri rolls it, lands a body shot right there, and kind of a left hook, rabbit punch kind of thing, but I don't think that that's exactly Chris Algieri's fault because of where Errol Spence is trying to get. And now Errol Spence does something good. He does throw the body shot. Looks like it lands, but he just ate those 2 counters for nothing. You know, not for nothing. He landed the punch, but there's no reason, right? Because he's not probing. And again, gets him on the ropes. He's trying to take an angle on him and telegraphs the fact that he's going to throw a punch and commits to a hook. And a hurt Chris Algieri is able to get off of the ropes and avoid being target practice for Errol Spence. Now, comes in, Chris Algieri catches him with a counter, kind of. If you look at that left hook in real time, it doesn't really exactly look like a punch. But I do think that, I'm not sure if Errol Spence lands a punch here. I'm inclined to say yes. Oh, wait, did his glove just pop up? Let's see if his glove popped up. He might have missed one. Takes the hook. No, can't really say. I'm inclined to believe that he does land the punch because he's been pretty consistent with being able to land them with the slow-mo replay that we saw earlier. So he is able to still find that shot. But again, it's the same punch combination. He's only shown one way to land punches that wasn't holding and hitting. And then he eats that right hook on the way out, I think. I don't know. Let's watch it in real time. It kind of looks like there's a right hook there from Algieri that lands, but then again, right, lead foot dominance with the faux jab, comes in with the hook, and I'm not sure if it lands. You can't really tell, but Chris Algieri does do something really smart, right? So when the hook, or when it starts coming, he turns his body away from it, so it might land on his shoulder blade or his back, right? Not foul, right? But turning away from the punch. Maybe it lands on his shoulder, you know, I don't know. And then throws a punch of his own, which I don't know lands either. But that's such a simple move to nullify Errol Spence's offense, right? And if he's just able to do that every time Errol Spence comes in to throw punches, he's able to completely nullify all of the legal effective offense that Errol Spence has exhibited throughout the course of this fight. Anyway, interesting right here. He jabs, moves off the line. And then, because he knows he knows Algieri is countering, and Algieri misses both of his counters. You know. Oh, also, look at how straight he's standing up, and when he throws this jab, and how he leans in on it. That's how you know he's not going to be taking lead foot dominance, is when he commits to his jab. He hasn't done it in since the first round, but it's one of his tells. You know, you can just tell, and he's not going for lead foot dominance, and he's also not prepared to throw his left hand because he doesn't have the balance for it. He's kind of like an in and out jab. So Chris Algieri knows that he can kind of just come in with some counters, and even though they don't land, it doesn't matter. But Errol Spence does move off the line really well and get away from those punches, even though he's moving into Algieri's right hook. He does get away from them and create space. So that is good. That is something he's going to be able to need to do. Again, not a jab. Gets his hand on his head, establishes lead foot dominance, and Algieri kind of throws like a little left hook. He lets him get on the outside of his hand right here, then pulls his arm all the way around Errol Spence's and kind of tags him with a really sloppy, you know, right hook kind of thing. And again, his tools are not the sharpest. You know, he's not really countering with the right hand, but he's able to do that, and it's just enough. The timing is just good enough to disrupt Errol Spence's rhythm and stop him from being able to land a punch. And that's how simple it has been so far. Ooh, now right there, the faux jab, but he's standing straight up with it, so it's a real jab, and Algieri counters him with a straight right hand. Really smart stuff. Boom. It catches him, moves away from where the left hand is going. Also, because he doesn't slip to the inside of the jab, he avoids all the head control from the pulling down of the punch, right? So when you're fighting like two orthodox fighters, if a fighter jabs at you, you'll generally slip to your inside and slip to their outside. And that might be one of the reasons why Algieri is having a little bit of trouble, is because he hasn't been slipping to the outside of Spence's jab. He's been slipping to the inside and trying to land a hook rather than slipping to the outside and landing a right hand. But anyway, Errol Spence, after getting countered, he's like, oh shit. Completely open when he throws this punch, right? And it kind of lands maybe on the body. It's not a big deal, but he does do the right thing in assessing that Chris Algieri is going to move away, and he throws a punch to catch him. Again, slips to the inside, right? Let's see, just make sure. So he just ducks. Errol Spence gets his arm on his head, but Chris Algieri starts spinning out to the right so that he doesn't get caught with those holding and hitting blows. And look at how quickly the referee tries to step in once Errol Spence is out of position. Like, oh, the referee's there, but every time that, like when he scooped up his leg and almost tripped him, nothing. You know, not to say, you know, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what I'm saying. But anyway, sees that Errol Spence is ducking down and thinks it's a punch, right? So Errol Spence is able to feint him right here, because every other time he's moved at all in any way, shape, or form, he throws a punch, but he controls his head a little bit, just like Spence does to him, and then throws it right to the body. He does let his head out before he does that, and you can kind of tell if you watch it in real time that he doesn't really mean to be holding his head down. Again, catches him with the counter. Whoops, there you go. The jab. Catches him with a real jab, but then he gets countered right there. And then Chris Algieri doesn't get his leg to the outside and gets kind of cramped up. And he does block that. And then Errol Spence, really smart, boom, throws it and shoots out to the outside. Because Errol Spence is not trying to ever counter the left hand or catch it and then throw offense after, you don't really get to see how valuable that technique is. But moving after you throw your punch, not leaving your head or your body in the same spot, is incredibly valuable. It's one of the, because Mayweather, like Floyd Mayweather, doesn't always use a lot of control to hold his opponent or to do this or to do that. Oftentimes he'll do the pull counter, right? Pull counter, throw the right hand, and then after he does that, he'll roll the hook, whether it comes or not, and then pivot out. And when the hook does come, he's never there for it. And there are times where it does come and it would crack him like real good. But because he makes sure that he's never in that position, he's able to prevent that punch from ever landing. You know, constant respect for boxing. And so in these instances, when he does that, Errol Spence does show that he has some a responsible level of thinking for defense post punch, right? But anyway, touching jabs. And I want to point out, like, I know Errol Spence has been leading most of the fight, but here Algieri is like, oh, touch his glove, feint, move his head a little bit, touch his glove, change levels. And through all of that, right, he jabs, and Algieri is able to get under it, basically just with his rhythm, you know, and he makes Errol Spence miss that punch because Errol Spence doesn't even know where his head's going to be ever, right? Whereas Errol Spence's head is always in the same spot. It never moves. But anyway, throws a punch, holds his head down, and Algieri tries to counter, but he doesn't, and I'm inclined to believe he eats a left there. But then Algieri lands a right hook right there, and look at Spence, man. Did he just get buckled? It looks like it, right? Boom. Looks less like it in real time, but in slow-mo, you see him kind of almost fall over, wipe his head, and be like, okay, time to move on. I think Algieri was wondering too. See, now look at these feints, right? Thinks the right hand's going to come. He gets his hand out to catch it. Oh, feint. Gets him to jab. Gets him to react first, right, with the feinting and the probing. He didn't even have to probe. He just feinted him before he even threw a punch. Got Errol Spence to move both of his hands and throws a right hand. Errol Spence still gets out of the way of it. That's not the point. But think. Tools, right? Errol Spence is, or Chris Algieri is not probably half the technique that Kell Brook does, right? Counters him with that. You know, I'm not sure like how effective of a punch it is, but almost gets countered with the hook too. Especially since he moves to his right, right? Almost walks into the hook, but that's not important. But anyway, Errol Spence showing that he's very susceptible to counters, and he's also very susceptible to people who have a good ability to set their punches up, because he reacts to feints, and he reacts to probing, he reacts to head movement, and he doesn't control his opponent when they're on their way in. You might say, oh, that him sticking his hands out there was controlling them, but he's not making them think, because those were reactive moves, especially the one where he's catching what would be the right hand, right? But he doesn't. I'm going to go back to it real quick. So after this, right, he gets feinted, but he doesn't change head slot. Then he throws the jab, doesn't change head slot, he just moves back. So a punch could have come and caught him, but when you miss a punch like that, or you miss a catch, or you miss a technique, you have to move, right? And he is moving back, but you don't want to move straight back, right? That's not the way that you want to do it. You want to take an angle, or you want to duck down, you know, give him a Canelo Alvarez, right? You do that, and then you bend at the waist, and you put your hands up to your head, and you body up with them with just your head, and then you use some head movement and pivot out, or you do something, right? And Chris Algieri's not the greatest athlete, so he's not going to be able to take advantage of it. But Kell Brook is going to be a little bit different of a story. Anyway. And remember, I am a fan of Errol Spence. I don't want to miss any of his fights. He's fun, he's exciting, he's a cheater, but it's still fun to watch him fight. Oh, man. So, throws a jab. He tries to counter him with the right hand. Good for him. Doesn't hold his head down and eats a huge left hand to the groin, right? And if you watch it in real time, misses the right hand. He doesn't hold his head down at all, but for some reason, right, it looks like it here, but he's not holding his head down. For some reason, he still gets caught with a huge low blow. And what happens? Writhes in pain, holds his crotch. You know, the referee is signaling to him right here, keep the punches up, and Errol Spence pays no heed. Literally doesn't care at all, because he has no sportsmanship. He just threw a huge fouling punch as a huge puncher and just says like, oh, he's hurt now, let me go throw some punches. You know, and what does the referee do? Doesn't give Chris Algieri 5 minutes, doesn't give him any time to recover, just throw some punches. And what happens? Opens up wide and eats a left hook right there. Look at his head dip like that. Look at him fall in after he gets hit with that punch. You know, completely loses balance because he gets cracked. And Chris Algieri is not half the puncher that Kell Brook is. Anyway, this is also, all this stuff that's going on in this round is all stuff that happened after Chris Algieri was knocked down. Now I want to talk about this real quick. He throws a right hand right here. Kind of hit him low. Oh, and off of the angle that he takes, Errol Spence, he throws this blatant rabbit punch and hits him in the back of the head. And now look at Errol Spence tapping on his shorts, saying, hey, you hit me low. Serious, man? Dude, you just rabbit punched this guy and low blowed him. You've been holding and hitting him all fight. Like, come on, Sandy Sadler. Like, get your shit together, dude. You're a dirty fighter, and you're going to complain about someone touching you on the leg while you're holding their head down? Come on, bro. I don't know if he was really holding his head down, but it doesn't matter. You know, he shouldn't be complaining. Chris Algieri's not complaining. He's getting completely fouled out of this fight. Boom. Almost catches him with the left hook. Algieri bends down and eats a left to the body. Good for Errol Spence. Oh, not to be beating a dead horse again. Hand control a little bit, you know, stick his hand out, feint him, throw a body, get lead foot dominance, throw a body shot. Literally the only thing that he's landed that's legal almost this entire fight. I don't know what happens here. Body shot. Does Errol Spence catch him with the hook? I can't really tell. The video quality is so poor. Let me know in the comments. I don't think so, but maybe Chris Algieri's just tired. Oh! Gets a knockdown! Look at that huge body shot! Oh my god, I can't believe I never saw that. Look at that. Boom! Knockdown. Where's Errol Spence's? No, I'm just kidding, guys. He gets tied up because... Oh, whoops. What does that button do? Okay, well, the round's over. I messed up my video, so it's all jacked up now. But anyway, again, Errol Spence, a lot of fouling in this round, a lot of unsportsmanlike conduct, expecting sportsmanship when he's not giving it. I don't know. He hasn't shown a very diverse set of offensive skills. It leads me to believe that he's going to have a very hard time against Kell Brook, especially if he's not allowed to foul at all. If he is allowed to foul, you know, he's probably going to have a pretty good time in the fight, except for when he gets stuck fighting on the outside. As you can see that Chris Algieri can very easily counter him. You know, he gets the punches off, he has the timing to do it, but he just doesn't have the speed and the power to really stop him in his tracks. Although it did look like two of the punches he landed in here kind of stopped Errol Spence a little bit, you know, shook him up a little bit. And that's subjective, you know, you guys might think differently, and that's fine, As long as you're seeing that the counters are there and that Errol Spence is open for them. And this is not to talk bad about Errol Spence. I think Errol Spence is a good fighter. I'm still going to watch his fights, but we're only talking about in comparison to Kell Brook. Anyway, like, comment, and subscribe. Let me know what you guys think. And stay tuned for the next video. Thank you.